How's it going, YouTube? This is Brian Cooper, and this is obviously the mustard and mayo, and this is kind of the first update that I've given on the fleet here in a long time. And the first thing I wanted to say is I just want to thank everybody who watches my videos. I know I don't upload on a regular basis. I don't really do this for that purpose. It's kind of just for me to chronologue all the stuff that I do with the vehicles and hopefully share something that might be useful to y'all if somebody's working on the same type of vehicle. But about a week or so ago, I actually hit the 1,000 subscriber mark, which is actually kind of neat, especially considering I don't market this page at all. So that just means that at least 1,000 of you want to watch my videos on a regular basis. So I definitely appreciate that. If you're watching this and you haven't thought about subscribing, feel free to do so. I'm not going to barrage you with a bunch of videos, but if you kind of want to see what's going on with kind of my interesting fleet of vehicles here, obviously that subscribe button is the best way to do that. So I do actually have a new update today on the Previa back over here. So I'll get to that. We're actually going to do just a little bit of quick and easy work with that, and then I'll kind of give you the tour of some of the rest of the fleet, including ones that are new to the fleet that I haven't even talked about. So thanks so much. Let's take a tour. All right, so first things first, I actually want to introduce one of the, actually it is the newest vehicle to the fleet, and this is my 2006 Hyundai Sonata. And this is actually something that I picked up through work. I work at a car dealership now, and this was a trade-in that we got, and it wasn't worth a whole lot of money, but I saw a ton of value in it as far as it being a utilitarian thing for me. So I picked this up for just around 500 bucks, about 600 bucks with taxes and everything like that. And it was actually a running and driving car. And since I've picked it up, I've done a lot to clean it up. It was actually pretty clean on the inside, but all I've really had to do is just some regular maintenance like oil changes, filters. I replaced the front headlights here. They were super faded, like all these cars normally get, all plastic headlight cars get. So I just replaced those with some new ones, and they actually do have like a little bit of a black housing to them, so they look good. And then I had to replace the upper control arms up in here because they are bad for rattling right up in there. So this thing, every time you go over bumps, it was just super noisy. And so I replaced those as well as the struts, and I think that was it up front. And outside of that, I've just been trying to keep up with the touch-up paint on this car. It's never been repainted, at least fully, but it's probably the one tragic flaw of this Hyundai is the fact that the paint is always in a state of peeling. It's just a very cheap paint to begin with. You can see here I've even done some touch-up, and it's continuing to peel every time I wash it. Same here. So this will be a candidate that maybe down the road just gets like a Mako paint job, but honestly I'm just going to probably leave it as is. This one's actually a nice one because it is a V6 car. It does have the sunroof, it does have the 17-inch wheels, it does have auto climate control, it does have leather seats, it's got even a decent stereo with a tiny little probably 6x9 woofer back here, and it actually sounds decent. I really don't have any plans to sink a ton of money into this one, but this is actually just a really good daily driver. Doesn't run premium like half the cars that I drive, and it's pretty good on fuel, and I don't mind putting the miles on. It's got like 180,000 miles and really no major mechanical issues, so I'm just going to kind of drive it and keep it going. So that's that. Welcome that one to the fleet. So now we'll kind of come back around and check out the other ones. So really no news with the Celica, unfortunately. I know this is kind of one of the probably better builds that I have here on my channel, but the real issue here is I just haven't had the time to work on it. Now that we're getting back into the warmer months, I should have time to work on this. I am actually still working despite all this coronavirus stuff, and I'm even doing some stuff with the National Guard right now for the next month or so. So I'm not going to be even here to work on it a ton. But that's kind of the story with it. Really, it does run, so I can hook the battery up and it will start, and it usually will start within the first couple cranks. The issue is, and it'll run up and down the road, but the issue is I don't quite have all the linkage locked down the way it needs to be for the carburetor, so the linkage kind of slides around. I need to figure out a better way to hook the throttle cable up to it because it actually pulls a different direction. And then I just need to play a little bit more with the timing on it. What in the heck? Look at this. There's a little, I don't know if y'all saw that, but there's a bee in the window, so great. I have to worry about that this time of year. But yeah, it runs, but when you put it under full throttle, it definitely kind of sputters some. It won't stall necessarily, but it doesn't really make a lot of power. So I just need to figure out if compression is fine. I need to just look at maybe just timing in general. The distributor timing seems to be set. I haven't done anything with the crank time, so I just need to kind of play around with that and kind of see what's going on. So unfortunately, it sits. I kind of just washed it recently, but you probably wouldn't be able to tell. So this has been the car that's been taking a lot of my attention as of recent, and a decent chunk of money as well. This is my 2003 G35 sedan. This, of course, is my 6-speed car. I love this thing. It's kind of my other daily driver for when I don't want to drive the Hyundai. If I'm going out of town and want to have a little bit of a nicer car to drive, this is the one that does it for me. And the big news I just kind of put on the channel recently with really no announcement is that I do have this Android. It's the Atoto A6 Pro. It's basically an Android head unit. This was the Metra kit for these cars, which is not the greatest. It's a little cheap on the plastic, and it definitely has these not so great rubber buttons versus the plastic buttons, but it does work. It does fit okay. The install went pretty smooth. When I put this in as part of the whole kit, I actually got a kind of hardwired dash cam, which is that little black circle right here. And that actually hooks up to this, which is recording at all times. And then I have a backup camera, which I haven't installed yet, but it's wired up. I just haven't wired it up in the rear. And then there's a little GPS thing, so I can actually use like offline maps and things like that with that, which is cool. I still had the original Bose stereo, which wasn't the greatest. It was kind of starting to wear down. CDs were getting stuck in there. There's, you know, kind of a bunch of issues with it. So that's new. I actually just took this on a big road trip to Missouri within the last month or two, and the car did great. The only other thing that I've been working on before I went on that trip is I had a big job where I replaced all of the replaced both valve covers, resealed those, as well as the spark plugs and the coils, and did an oil change just recently. And I actually had some trouble with that because I bought some cheap parts the first time. I'll see if I can find some photos dug on my phone here of the ones that I had, but they actually shorted, and that caused a problem, and I actually had to have the car towed to a shop. I didn't have time to work on it, so I paid a good friend of mine who runs a shop to basically finish the work that I didn't have time to do. So they went through and replaced the cheap coils with good coils, and which was fun because the car actually caught fire while it was there in the shop because one of the coils decided to short and actually catch fire. So I mean, they didn't have any real serious issues outside of that. Nothing obviously burned down. They just, you know, had to put the fire out and continue to go out about their business. But they got everything back together. The car runs really great now, and I've pretty much taken care of the oil leaks. I had the power steering rack replaced as well. That was leaking like crazy. So just kind of basic maintenance stuff with this one. I'm still tracking down. The valve covers aren't sealed perfectly, so I don't know if I just got the wrong stuff there as far as quality, or if it's just how the freaking valve covers go on this. There's just a little bit of vapor that seeps through, and when you've been driving for the car for like an hour or two, you get out, you can smell it. There's a little bit that burns off the manifold still, so I still need to address that, but at least this car runs really good right now. So that's that. Still happy with how this car looks. It's a fun one to drive around, handles great. So this is my pain in the ass project, which I never also seem to have time for, and it's really one of those things that every time I fix something, something else breaks. It's kind of just the life of having an MR2. This, of course, is my 87 MR2, originally for a GE car, non-supercharged. Now it has a GZE because the original one had, you know, 250,000 miles on it and finally blew up. On one of my last updates, for the longest time, I was tracking an issue where my suspension just did not feel right under corners. It just felt really wishy-washy, and I was having tons of issues with it. And I ended up tracking it down to the fact that the actual strut bolts that hold the strut, well, not strut bolts, but where the strut mounts to the knuckle, the strut bolts had actually worn a groove in there. So there was like a little bit of play where, believe it or not, the shock was able to move inside and outside. And I have some video of that, I think on this channel, if not on one of the other channels, where I kind of finally figured out with a GoPro stuck to the door, looking forward, what was going on. It was just this one side. So I went ahead and torqued everything down, replaced the front tires, and finally, for the first time, I actually had the front suspension glitch worked out, and it felt super tight and felt great. So I was hoping to just go ahead and replace the rear tires because they're due for it, and then just be able to start driving and enjoying the thing. But true to form, this started giving me issues. I was actually at the shop getting an alignment done after everything was said and done with fixing the front. And while it was there at the shop, it broke down. It started to not crank up. It wouldn't run. You could crank it up and it would run for a second, but then as soon as you started to give it some power, it would stall again. So we started to think that maybe it was the fuel pump, something like that. But I'm able to prime the fuel pump manually. And now it won't even fire at all. It'll run on starting fluid, but it won't run on anything, and it won't run for long, obviously. It'll just turn over and hit. So we don't know if it's something going on with the ECU, where it's just not telling the fuel pump to do its thing, or it's possibly an injector thing, or again, some things like the mass airflow or something's not telling the injectors to fire. So this is another one of those ones that I just haven't had time to finish playing with. I might even have to replace the fuel pump because it's probably due for it anyway on this thing. But I do know that the fuel pump is priming it. I don't know to what pressure it's running. So this one's kind of another just project that just continues to sit. Unfortunately, I drove this almost a year ago today to Import Alliance in Atlanta and had a lot of fun with it there. But even there, while I was at the Import Alliance show, it stalled once. And I set down to a bad distributor cap, which I replaced. And then, we got back to it not running again. So I keep tracking down issues with this car, and hopefully one of these days, I've had this car for years, maybe one of these days I'll actually be able to enjoy this thing. But for the meantime, it sits, and I hate that because as anything sits, it gets neglected, and tires get hard. That's the main thing with the Celica. As soon as I get the Celica back where it's roadworthy, step one is gonna have to be to replace the tires. Like, there's still some tread on these, but these are just super hard now. These are the old Hankook RS3s. And I mean, they're good to drive on probably, but I'm sure they're flat spotted. There's not much grip in these. They've just kind of been baked by the sun. They've got through a couple winters now. And just to kind of prove a point, the last time the Celica had active registration was back in 2015, 2016. And it's 2020 now. So I really need to get some time or just have a windfall of money where I can just pay somebody to get this one and this one back to where they need to be. But the last thing is a Previa update. And this has been kind of the other newer vehicle to the fleet. I picked this 92 Previa up last year, and I'm in love with this thing. I don't even really have to have a minivan, but I just like the work you can get done with one. I just recently got this back from the shop for an AC problem. We've been tracking down a leak, and it ended up being the evap core over there in the dashboard. So I'm not an AC guy. I think it's a waste of my time to even try to mess with that. So I had my good buddies at the Firestone here in Asheville knock that out for me. So now we've got working AC. I've got the roof AC unit torn apart because the blowers here, the fan blades, are slipping and they are causing a bunch of noise and not moving air. I think I fixed one of them, but I just need to finish working on the other one. Basically, it's like a rubber cement thing where the rubber O-ring kind of wears out. So you just put some rubber cement in there to kind of give it some traction, and then they move around and do what they're supposed to do. So I'm going to finish putting that together and actually put all the plastic back on the roof, and then I will actually have working AC, which is obviously a big thing since it's almost May, and this is going to be kind of a really useful vehicle for the summertime because of the fact that I can haul so much stuff for so much people. So if we want to go tubing or mountain biking or something like that, I can do it. The only other thing that I'm going to be doing here soon, a bunch of small stuff. So again, it's a summer thing. I really want to get these windows tinted. I'm going to go with probably like a 5% on the back, probably like a 20% here on the front and this side windows. And then I am going to do something on the windshield because it's like the largest piece of glass on this egg. So it's probably just going to be like a UV. It's probably like a 35% or higher. Just something with that. So the other thing that I'm going to be doing today, this is the big thing, is I'm finally going to be replacing the wheels that I first stuck on this van when I first got it, which was the Infiniti G35 wheels that I had as a backup for obviously my car over there. And I am happy with how they look. They give it kind of an aggressive look. They're 18s. I've got 245s on there. So, I mean, it's a decent look, but it's not my favorite setup for the car. They barely fit up in the front. So you can kind of see they actually stick out. Now, I'm sure if I ran a smaller, like narrower tire, or had a little bit of camber or did something in the front, they would fit. I am actually really happy with how they fit in the rear because it's pretty much flush. So that's actually a really good look on that. But it's not the ideal wheel setup for me. And the tires are getting a little bit old. So this is what I'm actually working on today. And I am super excited about this. So I've been looking for some 3-spoke wheels now for a long time. I had them on my second gen MR2 back in the day. And I finally found me a pair, or a set, I guess I should say, of RAV4 wheels off of a 1997. Now, these 3-spoke wheels were built by OZ for Toyota. I mean, you can see the Toyota logos on there, and the OZ logo is on the back of the center caps there and possibly on the back of the wheel. But these are a 16 by 6.5 wheel. They only came for the 1 year of the RAV4, and it was only on the RAV4 Sports and the 2 doors and 4 doors. And again, it was just a 1 year only thing. And so that's what makes them really hard to find. So I actually found these, picked them up for stupid cheap. I paid 120 bucks for the wheels, and that actually included all 4. And then I got Actually, I guess it was 130 bucks because I bought the lug nuts with it. And then all the center caps, including all of the hardware, is with them. And these things right here, even though they're not in perfect shape, they're in great shape for being, what, 20, 25 years old. So I'm super happy about that. So today we're actually gonna slap these on here and put them on here. It's probably gonna give the van a little bit of a more comfortable ride, since I don't really think vans are meant to have a 40 series tire on here. So I'm pretty excited about that. Then of course these are touring tires, so it's gonna help out with, you know, just road noise and fuel economy and stuff like that. So yeah, that's gonna be a thing. So let's just go ahead and put these on. And then what I'll do, these things are dirty. So when I get them on, get the center caps on, I'll probably get the van washed. I'll actually give a little bit of video of how it looks. All right, here is the finished product. They went on with no problems, got them cleaned up, and I think they look freaking sweet. These wheels definitely set off the van and give it that 90s look that the van already has. Just kind of brings it out. I liked it all right with the other wheels, but these definitely just suit it better. And it's probably going to be a much better sidewall to ride on going down the highway as well. Here we are, center caps on. Looks pretty good. All right, and that does it for today. So again, thanks everybody who watches these videos. Thank you all for the subscriptions. If you want to see more with the van, I'm hoping to have some window tint, some things done with it soon. And then when I'm back in town, I'll be able to get some more stuff done with the MR2 and the Celica. And of course, the bike is actually running. It's back in the shed as well. So again, thank you everybody for watching. Have a great day.